Okay, let's do it. Let's get it. I think we're starting out with the in the deep end here. We're gonna continue doing the stuff we've been doing at the end of our streams, just in the beginning. And this time, I think we're gonna do something fun at the end. What I want to set up for when we're feeling accomplished today. Um, what do I want? What do I want to say? Can you can you give me a menu of the most optimal meditation strategies for building different skills? Which skills are available to strengthen, and what practice would lead to their strengthening? Imagine that I am able to practice every day, but I am interested in how long I would need to practice for optimal rewards, optimal outcomes. For me, imagine that I have anywhere between 15 minutes, 15 to 45 minutes. How should I go? Okay, no. Maybe let's see what it gives for that, and then we can maybe ask things like, can we double up? Actually, you know what? No, I do want that in there. Can different practices, can I double up different practices on the same day? Or do I start seeing diminishing returns? Okay. Got a lot of... Yo, Mr. Cookie, what's good? Welcome back. Today I think we're doing like a deep dive of the chemicals that are involved with our attention, focus, and motivation. But I'm setting up something that's going to be a little more fun for afterwards. But I'm just preparing it now because it usually takes like 20 minutes for Gemini to do this research. All right, meditation for skill building menu. Identify distinct cognitive and emotional skills that can be strengthened through meditation, such as sustained attention, emotional regulation, compassion, and divergent thinking. Map these identified skills to specific meditation techniques. Research the dose-response relationship in meditation to determine optimal session lengths within the 15 to 45-minute range for triggering neuroplastic changes or behavioral improvements for each specific skill. So I do want to say, even though my window is probably that, I need to know just in general as well. Investigate the efficacy of combining different meditation styles in a single day versus focusing on a single modality, looking for evidence of synergistic benefits or cognitive fatigue diminishing returns. Find expert consensus or scientific studies comparing the effectiveness of a single long session versus multiple shorter sessions for skill acquisition. Compile the findings into a structured menu, categorizing the skill, the corresponding optimal practice, recommendation duration for efficiency, and guidelines on mixing practices. So I'm going to do the edit, and then I'm going to say, this all looks excellent. Just to be clear, while my practice could be within the 15 to 45 range, I do want to also know what would be recommended if there wasn't a range slash cap. All right, and then let's see where that takes us. All right, so to give the background on this stuff, we're specifically interested in anything related to focus right now and attention. This is all for part 2 stuff because we want to know the practical story here. Like, what can we do to whatever it would be, increase these chemicals for us, increase our brain's ability to leverage these chemicals throughout the day in an effective way, our ability to deliberately direct our focus or to maintain focus or to build motivation. Like, all these things I think necessitate that I understand this stuff at a lower level. So this type of deep dive is kind of for me, and hopefully I'll be able to come back at the other side of this thing with more actionable, accessible takeaways and insights. That being said, I'm going to try to summarize things as we go. We kind of figured out that norepinephrine is specifically a chemical that's for what would it be? Your level of attention, let's just say, whether or not you're not attentive to anything, or if you're like in an amped state. You know, when I'm doing this type of thing, I'm somewhere in between where I'm kind of keeping attention, but not so much so that this is like a high what would it be? High risk, high stake situation. So norepinephrine is kind of it's amping up the whole system. I think that's the way to think about it. Norepinephrine is the amp. And yeah, in doing so, it amps up what we're focused on, and it's also muting what we're not focused on. Then we got to acetylcholine, and this is more the spotlight of attention. Acetylcholine is specifically modulating and regulating like what is in our attention. So like, I mean, we just take this stuff for granted. When you look at something, like, you see the thing that's in your attention, but really what's going on is that acetylcholine is being released in the specific part of your brain that corresponds to the thing that you're paying attention to. So, you know, when I'm looking at something, that chemical is being released in specifically the visual cortex, and that's affecting my conscious experience of that thing being clear in my view. So while, you know, when I'm not paying attention to something else, like, you know, you can imagine as rough edges in my conscious awareness, when I pay this close attention, this chemical is affecting how clear this thing shows up in my view. So acetylcholine dials us in. Let's say norepinephrine amps us up or down. But no, I think you would say it amps us up because the absence of it would dial you down. And then acetylcholine dials you in, like it's specifically focusing your attention. And it doesn't have to be something like your visual field. It could be like if I close my eyes and I pay attention to a smell or something like that, it's going to highlight those parts of the brain. The other cool thing that we saw yesterday is that, like, when we, you know, mindful meditate and you're focusing on your thoughts as they arise, now it starts to look at the parts of your brain that are effectively adding those thoughts to your conscious experience, and it's looking at that as if it was also bottom up sense data. So that's pretty neat. Okay, let's see how this is going. I've updated the list. So what has changed here? We still have everything. Research the dose response relationship in meditation to determine optimal session length for maximizing skill acquisition, investigating both the ideal duration without time constraints and the best outcomes possible within a 15 to 45 minute window. Okay. And then investigate the efficacy of combining different meditation styles in a single day, find expert consensus. Yes, all this is good. Let's start that research. Okay, so where does that leave us? So I've got this side chat going on here for, I was asking why it described acetylcholine's mechanism as squirting, as opposed to, I think when we were looking at norepinephrine, we were seeing leaking, and it was more diffuse. But that goes to intuitively that connects with how acetylcholine is dispensed or squirted in very specific areas of the brain, whereas and specific areas of the brain to create that type of spotlight, that type of specific focus, whereas norepinephrine is diffused across a larger area, causing a lot of our signals to become to get in sync with each other, so that everyone's on the same page, that we're trying to do this one thing that acetylcholine is at the same time affecting. Okay, so where were we? We saw that stuff. Okay, yeah, with acetylcholine, there's also this suppressing. This effectively dampens the noise or background chatter of intrinsic cortical activity. All right, interaction with norepinephrine, the orienting response. This might be where we were. One of the most nuanced findings in recent literature is the precise temporal coordination between the noradrenergic and cholinergic systems during the deployment of attention. Acetylcholinergic, epinephrine is just adrenaline, so noradrenergic. Jeez. They do not fire simultaneously, rather they execute a synchronized handoff. Research analyzing pupil dilation, a proxy for LCNE activity. Whoa. And cortical states reveals a consistent sequence. The alert, NE, upon the appearance of a cue, the locus ceruleus fires a phasic burst of norepinephrine. This activity peaks approximately 1 second before the maximum pupil dilation. This NE burst serves to interrupt current processing and promote a state of generalized alertness. Right? Focus, though. Cholinergic activity from the basal forebrain lags behind, peaking approximately 0.5 seconds after the maximum pupil dilation. So basically, norepinephrine comes in and it shakes everything up in a sense. It's because there's a phasic burst, it's disrupting the current, whatever your current attention was on. And then now the acetylcholine's coming in, and it's taking advantage of this disruption, and it's specifically pointing our attention at something. Cholinergic activity from the... Okay, lags behind, peaking approximately 0.5 seconds after the maximum pupil dilation. This delayed acetylcholine release serves to lock on to the target identified by the alert signal, engaging sustained attentional circuits. This temporal offset, any first, ACH second, suggests a functional dichotomy. Norepinephrine breaks the old state, acetylcholine establishes the new state. Disruption of this timing or the balance between these two modulators results in attentional deficits. High norepinephrine and low acetylcholine, the floodlight. The subject is hyper alert and anxious but unable to focus on a single target. So I'm guessing this is ADHD. Attention shifts rapidly and involuntarily. High acetylcholine and moderate norepinephrine, the spotlight. The subject is alert and capable of sustaining deep focus on a specific task, filtering out irrelevant distractors. Okay. So I want to see, okay, following the idea that NE breaks an old state of attention and ACH establishes a new state. When does the tonic NE come into play? Would that be... All right, the other report is ready. Would that be almost immediate? Or does it come in slowly? I don't know. Is it a whole different type of circuit, a whole different type of system? All right, the parietal cortex and attentional shifting. The posterior parietal cortex, PPC, acts as a critical hub where these cholinergic mechanisms are spatially mapped. It contains a saliency map of the visual field. Cholinergic inputs to the PPC are essential for covert attention, the ability to shift mental focus to a peripheral location without moving the eyes. Okay, that's cool, you're right. Mechanism. Cholinergic stimulation of the PPC enhances the firing of neurons representing the attended location. Lesions or cholinergic antagonists in this region abolish the ability to shift attention, leading to phenomena like neglect, where a subject ignores half of their visual field. We saw this. Oscillatory control. Attention is not a continuous beam, but a rhythmic pulse. The PPC and frontal eye fields sample the environment in discrete windows, synchronized by gamma and theta oscillations. Acetylcholine is critical for maintaining the amplitude and coherence of these oscillations, linking the biochemical substrate to the electromagnetic rhythm of thought. All right, this is a crucial question because it gets to the heart of how we maintain effort. The short answer is tonic norepinephrine adjusts slowly, seconds to minutes, not immediately. While phasic norepinephrine is the snap, and acetylcholine is the spotlight, tonic norepinephrine is the volume knob. You do not want the volume to blast to maximum the moment you switch channels. Here is the precise timing and role of tonic norepinephrine in your sequence. Let's trace the timeline, switching focus to a new task, hearing a sound, and then focusing on a math problem. The interrupt, phasic norepinephrine, clears the cache. The shift, select the new circuit. Adjustment, tonic norepinephrine, seconds to minutes. This is where the brain decides how hard is this new task. Why tonic norepinephrine is slow. The locus ceruleus uses tonic firing to track utility and difficulty. It acts like an integrator, a running average, rather than a switch. If the new task is easy, tonic norepinephrine stays moderate. This is the Goldilocks zone. The zone or flow. You want tonic levels here because it allows the next phasic burst to be easily felt. If the new task is hard/stressful, tonic norepinephrine ramps up slowly. As you struggle with the problem, the LC starts firing faster and faster in the background. If tonic norepinephrine gets too high, you enter high tonic mode. This drowns out the phasic signals You become jittery, anxious, and unable to focus. All right, high tonic kills focus. This is the most counterintuitive part. You might think I need high tonic norepinephrine to focus hard. False. Moderate tonic, optimal focus. The background is quiet, so the signals pop. High tonic, the background is loud. You are in scanning mode. You are looking for tigers, not solving puzzles. So yeah, when something crazy happens, some huge prediction error, some salient prediction error, like someone breaking into my house, then we're high tonic here. So in your example of focusing on a cup, you do not want a surge of tonic norepinephrine. You want tonic norepinephrine to settle into a steady, moderate rhythm that keeps you awake but calm. Okay, then the second question I wanted to ask was, oh, it was something about this visual field stuff. Oh, okay. Now, when talking about the PPC and FEF and how we can keep our eyes still, but I'll say steady, locked, but still manage to change focus of our periphery. How do you say this? Oh yeah. Does that involve the what is this called? Entorhinal cortex to manage distances and locations in our field of vision? Now, I'm guessing the answer is yes, but I'm not sure. All right, this is a fascinating hypothesis, but the short answer is no. The entorhinal cortex is likely not the manager of this specific process. You have correctly identified the spotlight controllers, but the coordinate system they use for covert attention, looking out of the corner of your eyes, is different from the coordinate system the entorhinal cortex uses. Here is the distinction between the brain's screen space versus its world map. The conflict, screen space versus world map. To understand why the entorhinal cortex isn't the primary driver here, we have to look at how these regions map space. The entorhinal cortex, the GPS, allocentric, world-centered. Grid cells, the EC tells you where you are in the room. It maps the geometry of the environment itself. It is essential for navigation, but it is too slow and abstract for the rapid flicker of visual attention. So it's not managing, I guess, the 2D space of our screen, if that's the word. The PPC and FEF, the pixel map, coordinate system, retinotopic, eye-centered. So obviously, though, these two are gonna, actually, I should say, okay, cool. I'm guessing, however, that it is the case that these two, or more accurately, the product signals of these two interact in such a way that they affect the trajectory of each other, perhaps not directly. Okay. These regions map space relative to where your fovea is currently pointing. If you move your eyes, the entire map shifts instantly. This is the system used for covert attention. When you keep your eyes locked on a cup but attend to a pen in the periphery, you are operating in retinotopic space. You don't need a GPS to do this. You just need to shift the electrical gain on the pixels in your visual cortex, processing that corner of the scene. I should say also, what should I make of the idea that we process space differently when thinking about things within our immediate reach versus things outside of our reach. In other words, the up versus down framework. Okay. So what does manage the location distance in the periphery? If it's not the entorhinal cortex, what prevents your spatial awareness from breaking when you move your eyes or head? The answer lies deep inside the PPC, specifically in the magic of gain fields. The PPC solves this problem using gain fields. This is arguably the most elegant math the brain performs. The image on your retina shifts every time you move your eyes. How does the brain know the pen didn't actually move? PPC neurons receive two inputs. The visual input, there's a blob at coordinate that on the retina. Eye position input, the eyes are rotated 15 degrees to the left. The neuron multiplies these together to calculate the head-centered coordinate. So the PPC acts as a coordinate transformer. It constantly updates the location of that peripheral object relative to your head, not just your eye. It does this before the signal ever reaches the entorhinal cortex. Wow. When does the entorhinal cortex get involved? It comes online when you stop treating the object as a visual distinctness and start treating it as a landmark with some significance. Which I think we're always doing, right? You are staring at a screen and noticing a flashing icon in the corner, rapid retinotopic processing, right? You realize that icon is a map and you need to physically walk out of the room to find the bathroom. Okay. All right, so let's get to this next question. You're right. These two systems are not isolated islands. They're constantly trading data to correct each other's trajectories. They interact via a critical translator called the retrosplenial cortex. So what happens if we just like look this word up? Like what is going on here? It's a cortical area in the brain comprising blah, 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 blah. It is a secondary association cortex making connections with numerous other brain regions. The region's name refers to its anatomical location, blah, blah, blah. Its function is currently not well understood, but its location close to visual areas and also to the hippocampal spatial memory system suggests it may have a role in mediating between perceptual and memory functions, particularly in the spatial domain. However, its exact contribution to either space or memory processing has been hard to pin down. Ha ha ha. Intriguing. The interaction, the translation loop. You guess that the product signals affect each other. Here is exactly how that works physically in the brain. So, updating the map, your eyes lock onto a landmark, for example, a Starbucks sign. The PPC calculates the angle relative to your head. The retrosplenial cortex translates that angle into world coordinates. It tells the entorhinal cortex you are exactly 10 feet south of the landmark. Your internal GPS dot updates. Entorhinal to PPC, priming the eyes. Your entorhinal cortex knows you are in your kitchen map. It sends a prediction back up through the translator. It biases your PPC to look for refrigerator-shaped objects at specific heights. You find the milk faster because your GPS told your eyes where to expect it. All right, the up versus down framework. Your question about immediate reach versus outside reach maps perfectly onto the most fundamental divide in cortical processing, the dorsal stream versus the ventral stream. In neuroscience, we distinguish between peripersonal space within reach and extrapersonal space beyond reach. The up system, out of reach. Nope. Am I wrong about that? I thought up was out of reach, down was in reach. Am I going crazy? The up system, dorsal stream, parietal, anything you could punch, grab immediately. Okay, up versus down, brain. Upstairs brain. No, come on. Nope. Nope. Peripersonal. This should do it. The distinction between up brain and down brain is an analogy for different functional parts of the brain. While up versus down in the context of, okay, refers to different, no, nope. Nope, that's not it. Am I going insane? I'm reading the book. What's it called? The chemical of more? The chemical of more? The something of more? The molecule of more. In the molecule of more, it differentiates between the up and down. I'm just going to see where that takes us. This really isn't that important. I'm just trying to see why. I could have sworn that the analogy used in this book was up was like far away and down was within our reach, but I could be wrong. In the Richton coup, I think it's Coop. With the troop, I'm peering through lines. Grab the pen and shout out, Stan. I'm rich, son, but I'm still looking for a dime. Nice. Dime and lines, very nice. Welcome back. We're doing in the weeds stuff today, and then we're gonna do some fun stuff, more meditation stuff. But okay, these people distinguish between up and down to explain how brains process information and motivate behavior. This distinction is based on the biological difference between peripersonal space, what is right in front of us, and extrapersonal space. Here's the breakdown. The up world, extrapersonal space. The up refers to everything beyond our... Okay. I'm not going crazy, because this is saying the up system is anything you can punch, grab, or manipulate. Is it not the other way around, with up being extrapersonal? Or is this not actually a well substantiated, I'm sorry, a broadly used analog for peripersonal versus extrapersonal? So this is the idea that our brain is processing things that are within our reach different than things that are outside of our reach, even if, let's just say, the object was exactly the same. Because yeah, this is what I heard in the book. Because the terminology here is notoriously confusing, there is a clash between the anatomical up, where the neuron sits in the skull, and the intuitive up, looking at the horizon. You are right to be suspicious, but the anatomical mappings I gave as standard neuroscientific definition. I need to give it in the molecule of more, they use the alternate, the converse. Were they wrong, or are they just using an intuitive phrase, mapping? Or are you wrong? When neuroscientists say the up system, they're referring to the dorsal stream, which physically runs along the top of the brain, right? Why this feels wrong. Is this a broadly used analog? So yeah, you identified a direct collision between neuroanatomy terminology and behavioral metaphorical terminology. So yeah, I'm just wondering if that was just used. Is that terminology, is the up, down, analog here only used within this book? Usually it seems like up refers to dorsal networks. Okay, we don't need to have two of these things going, but... Oh, is this the one that we've been following? Oh, that's a bummer. I shouldn't be polluting it with my mere questions. But let's go back to where it actually gave an answer here. Okay, dorsal stream. Anything you can grab, you can punch, grab, or manipulate. The brain doesn't care where the cup is in the room. It cares where the cup is relative to your shoulder. The up brain is obsessed with affordances, angles, grip width, and velocity. So I'm getting like default mode network is outputting possibilities here. It ignores color and identity. It doesn't care if the cup is expensive, only that the handle is on the right. And I don't know if that's always the default mode network, but whatever's generating possibilities here. When an object enters your reach, your brain physically switches gears. The up system suppresses the down system. All right, the down system, ventral stream. Anything you can see but cannot touch. Allocentric, world-centered. Since you can't touch it, you map it relative to the environment. The down brain is obsessed with identity, meaning, and memory. It analyzes the texture, color, and semantic value of the object. This is the realm of the entorhinal cortex and hippocampus. It is about planning and navigating, not acting. The force field, here is the coolest part of the within reach processing. Your brain generates a literal buffer zone around your body. In the up parietal regions. Wait, didn't we just say up was dorsal? Oh, okay, yeah, that is. Parietal means outward, or is it literally up as well? The wall? Yeah, okay, so almost peripheral in a sense. Regions, there are neurons that fire both when you are touched on the arm and when an object moves near the arm without touching it. The Cobra effect, this creates a tactile prediction. Your brain feels objects before they hit you. Tool extension, if you hold a rake, your brain expands this force field to include the tip of the rake. The rake becomes part of your up system, and you start processing distinct rocks as if they were within reach. That's pretty cool. Okay, in standard neuroanatomy, dorsal indeed means top and ventral means bottom. Of course, however, up and down terminology in the molecule more is not a reference to that network. Right, I want to know if... okay, the up-down distinction in the book is only used within this book and perhaps arguably in evolutionary psychology regarding peripersonal space. If you're reading other neuroscience papers, dorsal... Right. But I think the book was just trying to create like a... I don't know, something easy to remember. But they're making it harder for people just trying to understand. All right, what do we got? We've got to move on. I think we're on dopamine now. The engine of pursuit, dopamine dynamics. Once the brain is awake, norepinephrine, and focused, acetylcholine, it requires a drive to act. This drive is the province of dopamine. Man, the province of dopamine? Contrary to the popular notion of dopamine as a reward or pleasure chemical, rigorous research defines it as the molecule of craving, motivation, and reward prediction error. It is the fuel that allows an organism to endure friction in the pursuit of a goal. Right. It's literally the drive. So any drive in our brain that we can think about is leveraging dopamine at some point to actually create the drive. Dopaminergic pathways and functions. Dopamine operates through distinct anatomical pathways, each subserving a different aspect of motivation and control. The mesolimbic pathway projects from the ventral tegmental area to the nucleus accumbens. This is the primary go system, regulating incentive, salience, desire, and the psychological feeling of wanting. Okay, when dopamine is released via VTA to nucleus accumbens, what is actually creating the feeling of drive? Is there another molecule that's being released as a result, or is it simply the dopamine? As far as we can tell, in my understanding, dopamine makes neurons more excitable. So perhaps, so my intuitive speculation is that it increases the feeling of something that is already, I don't know, of something else that already generates some sort of drive feeling. Increased dopamine makes that that mechanism extra pronounced, but I don't know. I'm not sure. This is new stuff. All right, projects from the mesocortical pathway projects from the VTA to the prefrontal cortex. This pathway is crucial for top-down regulation. So this makes sense, right? Like this is where the dopamine is going to excite these networks in such a way where essentially you're getting a connections that fire together wire together, or neurons that fire together wire together, and you're trying to connect you want the wire together to be both these prefrontal cortex areas and functions, as well as the feeling, which is, without the feeling here, you wouldn't be able to get addicted to something. But it's this feeling that like, what is actually causing the incentive here? What about the nucleus accumbens is doing that? All right, you have essentially derived the modern scientific consensus known as incentive salience theory. To answer your question directly, you are correct. Dopamine is not the feeling itself. It is the amplifier that transforms a neutral perception into a compelling target. Here is what is actually creating the feeling of drive. Glutamate. You have speculated that dopamine increases the feeling of something else. That something else is glutamate. The signal, glutamate, signals from your memory, hippocampus, and emotion centers flood the nucleus accumbens with glutamate. They say things like, there is a coffee cup, or I remember coffee tastes good. Right? Right. So the taste good, though. This has to be like what I've always considered glutamate to be the excitatory neurotransmitter What about the spike in excitement, in neural excitement, leads to perceived excitement? Obviously, much of this is unconscious or subtle. Okay. The amplifier, dopamine. Without dopamine, that glutamate signal is weak. You see the cup, you remember the taste, but you don't care, you don't move. The interaction, when dopamine arrives from the VTA, it lands on the same neurons receiving that glutamate. It drastically increases the gain of the glutamate signal. Right? The coffee cup signal becomes essentially the loudest thing in the brain. The feeling of drive is the subjective experience of your attention being magnetically pulled toward that object. Ah, that makes more sense. Is it simply that we end up believing that things in our attention, things that draw our attention are, what's the word? Not beneficial, interesting, not interesting. We want to get it. Are compelling? Is this a sleight of hand where our brain makes sense of this moment as desire? Or does dopamine rely on other, I don't know. Oh, cheap viewers, hell yeah. Obviously, dopamine behavior is instantiated or instituted by actual rewards. But in the moment, what is tricking the brain into thinking that the gravity compelling our attention is something we want? Is it simply that we assume that we are the controllers of our attention, and so we just make sense of this as us looking at, or us focusing on things we want because simply because otherwise then we wouldn't be in control? I don't know. I've always considered, is that how I started this? Did I say I've always considered? Oh, I've always considered, ayo. I've always considered glutamate. It's all about those glutes. All right. The feeling is motor tension. I should always just continue reading before I get my thought down. But I actually do think it's beneficial to get the thought down, regardless of whether the answer is going to be said in the next paragraph, because at least it has me thinking. It forces me to think through my intuition, and then we get to test it. Why does drive feel like an urge to do something? Because the nucleus accumbens is not a feeling center. It is a motor interface. Its job is to translate motivation into movement. The NAC connects directly to the motor system. When dopamine floods the NAC, it disinhibits the GO pathway. The feeling of drive is actually a pre-motor tension. It is your body physically preparing to act. You feel driven because your motor cortex is revving its engine, waiting for the brake to be released. Okay, so my question here, it's actually even, it's more that the gravity compelling our attention and mobilization is something we want. We assume that the controllers of our attention and actions right, because it could just be that we, you know, the way that we understand the world is like we have this type of control, but we don't realize how much dopamine can actually mobilize us. Like dopamine can get us to do something, and we're not always in a position where we want to do something, or that we're not, you know, it's not like our default mode is to just do a bunch of things. So when things actually drive our ability to do something, then we just assume that it's something worth being interested in. Or is there a specific subset of neural processes that would okay, or is there a specific subset of neural processes that would significantly contribute to this sleight of hand? For example, mobilization of X or Y versus Z, or what comes after Z usually? A? Or do you always just start at... How do I not remember this? I don't know. Okay, I saw a book today called Art Cure that might be of interest. Dom was talking about something similar yesterday. Art Cure. The science of how the arts save lives. This is, yeah, let's definitely throw this in the part 3 this huge block of a bunch of random things that we have. But what are we up to? Oh, we're only up to 28 pages. That's fine. 28 pages of random notes. Easy. I think that, I mean, this, what are we at here? We're at 126 pages of just random notes. Some of which is, I mean, it's now organized random notes, but I think we're going to be able to cut that down significantly. But then we're also going to have to build it up because we have so much stuff we don't have notes on yet. All right. If dopamine isn't pleasure, what is it? Oh, what is? Well, yeah, so the opioid distinction. For years, people thought dopamine equals pleasure. We now know this is wrong. Dopamine is wanting. The feeling of satisfaction comes from a different set of molecules. Okay, the last thing is or are all of these guesses wrong? And it's more so that opioids are being released while we are wanting. Effectively, not only building patterns of drive, but also giving us reward before the reward ought to, before we'd expect the reward to actually come. That's the other thing that I've been wondering, like, is it literally just dopamine that's driving this stuff, or is there a mix of that plus these reward molecules? If you deplete a rat's dopamine, it will starve to death even if food is right in front of it. No drive wanting. But if you put the food in its mouth, it will still smile and lick its lips. Where does the conscious feeling happen? Since the nucleus accumbens is deep subcortical, you technically don't feel anything there. The NAC drives behavior, but the conscious awareness of that drive, I'm feeling ambitious right now, happens when the NAC sends signals up to the cortex. The insula, this region reads the state of your body. It depicts that your heart rate is up and your muscles are tense. It translates that translates that physical state into the feeling of urge or craving. Like, is it all just cortical mappings? I should say insular. Well, the insula is the relay here, but it still needs to affect this type of feeling somewhere. And even though the insula is the relay for many systems in the global network, I'd imagine that the actual simulated feeling of urge and craving would be distributed to certain localized regions, networks. Okay. The orbitofrontal cortex, this region assigns a conscious value to the feeling. It translates that chemical activity into thought. Right. Okay, so this is going to be a good follow-up, I think. All right, then what is going on here?
Nigrostriatal.
Nigrostriatal? Nigrostriatal. Or toll. Okay, the nigrostriatal pathway projects from the substantia nigra to the dorsal striatum. While traditionally associated with motor control, this pathway is also critical for the formation of habits and the automatization of behavior. As a task moves from novel/motivated to habitual, control shifts from the VTA to the substantia nigra. Okay, dorsal up. It's also critical for the formation of habits. But this is the upper dorsal striatum. Okay. So that's still like subcortical. As a task moves from novel motivated to habitual, control shifts from the V. Okay. All right, this is a profound question that touches on the hard problem of consciousness. Why does neural firing feel like something? You are very close to the truth with your sleight of hand hypothesis, but the reality is a mix of all three possibilities you listed. The feeling of desire is a complex cocktail of motor preparation, interoception, and a specific opioid preview. Here is the breakdown of what tricks your brain into feeling gravity. The sleight of hand, the interpreter theory. You ask, is it simply that we assume that we are the controllers and so we just make sense of this as us focusing on things we want? Yes, this is a huge component. Neuroscience calls this sense of agency attribution. The nucleus accumbens, fires and lowers the barrier to action, disinhibits the basal ganglia. Your body starts to lean forward, your eyes lock on, and your heart rate rises, all before you have consciously decided to act. Your conscious cortex, left hemisphere, interpreter, observes your own body mobilizing. It thinks, well, I'm looking at it and my heart is racing. I must really want this. The evidence in stimulation studies, if you electrically stimulate a patient's motor cortex to make them lift their arm, they will often invent a reason. I just wanted to stretch. They retroactive fit the desire to match the action. What is going on here? Oh my gosh. This is the type of thing that we need these philosophy YouTubers to be talking about. All right, first, can you point me in the direction of the interpreter theory, evidence, and evidence. Is there a good book? A good contemporary? I'm thinking, you know, 2017 plus. Actually, I'll say 2026. Book or simply just studies. Okay, next. The visceral trick, the insula and somatic markers. You were right to suspect the insula. The feeling... did I say the insula? When did I say the insula? Oh, no, I said insula here. I meant the... What did I think? The insula is part of the cortex, and it's doing... It's interpreting interoceptive data. I was thinking of the thalamus as the relay. Okay. I gotta chill on that one. Okay, the feeling of urge is not abstract, it's physical. Dopamine doesn't just talk to the brain, it talks to the body. Dopamine triggers the sympathetic nervous system via the hypothalamus. Heart rate, muscles, heart rate up, muscles tense, pupils dilate. The insula receives these signals from the organs. The urge is the subjective sensation of motor tension. It is the feeling of a compressed spring. We interpret this uncomfortable energy as desire because it is directed at a target. Without the target, we would just call it anxiety or restlessness. Nice. Are you suggesting that the logic of the insula basically takes in bottom-up signals? No, I should say interoceptive signals and mixes that with oh, yeah, what would the insula... Okay, no, I should say that. When considering the logic of the insula, it takes in interoceptive signals and mixes that with top-down predictions. Are those predictions entirely affected by dopamine in this case, or is there some other, perhaps more direct influence of dopamine that affects the insula's interpretation? Okay, okay. The opioid preview. Let's... Okay, the opioid preview. You are right! Exclamation point. Is it more so that opioids are being released while we're wanting, giving us rewards before we'd expect the reward? This is the missing link. If wanting were purely dopamine, it would feel stressful, like an itch. If it were purely opioid, it would feel satisfying, like a scratch. Desire is the distinct mental state where you have high dopamine plus a microdose of opioids. When you see a cue, for example, a donut, your brain releases a massive surge of dopamine and a tiny phasic burst of opioids in the NAC hedonic hotspots. The taste. This tiny opioid burst acts as a sensory simulation of the reward. It is a preview of the pleasure, because the pleasure comes along with like much more sensory information. The gravity you feel is the contrast between the high tension of dopamine, the itch, and the fleeting taste of opioid. the potential scratch. The brain is tricked into thinking the object contains the pleasure, while in reality, the object just triggered a small internal release of it. Why it feels like gravity, the goal gradient effect. The feeling of gravity, that the pull gets stronger the closer you get, is chemically literal. Oh my gosh. Ramping activity. As you physically approach a target, dopamine firing doesn't stay flat. It ramps up. This is really important for goal, the topic of goal pursuit. Decreased effort cost. Dopamine counteracts perceived effort. The more dopamine you have, the lighter the work feels. As you get closer, the action becomes easier and easier. Path of least resistance. We interpret this ease of action as the object pulling us. We attribute the force to the object, but the force is actually the reduction of internal friction in our own motor systems. That's why when you give an alcoholic the cup of vodka right in front of them, like, this is almost like literally the most difficult thing you could do for them if they're trying to not drink that. The trick of desire is a synchronized event. Dopamine creates motor tension. The spring, opioids provide a sensory preview. The bait, the insula, feels the body revving up. The sensation, the cortex concludes, I am choosing to pursue this because I want it. The lie. Since you understand this sleight of hand, would you like to know how addiction essentially breaks the cortex part of this loop? In other words, the addict experiences the motor tension and the gravity, but the cortex stops agreeing, I want this, leading to the horrific state of wanting without liking. That sounds a little scary. I think we're gonna move on from that. Even though we do have to talk about addiction at some point. I think this year, right? Don't we have addiction as a topic in our roadmap? Where is that? I think that's habit and routine, maybe. Yeah. We got to do a deep dive into habits. Okay, what are we at? We're at a minute and 7. We're at an hour and 7 minutes. We could keep flying. We started early today. Okay, here is the breakdown of the interpreter theory, resources, and a deeper look at the insula's logic, specifically how dopamine hijacks the predictive machinery. All right, we've seen this guy a bunch. The concept that the left hemisphere weaves a post hoc narrative to explain unconscious behaviors originates from Michael Gazzaniga's split brain research. The classic evidence in the seminal chicken claw experiment, a split brain patient saw a chicken claw in the right eye and a snowy scene in his left eye. When asked to point to a matching object, his right hand pointed to a chicken and his left hand pointed to a shovel. When asked why he pointed to the shovel, his left hemisphere, which didn't see the snow, didn't say, I don't know. Instead, it instantly invented a lie. Oh, that's to clean out the chicken coop. The conclusion, the brain creates a coherent story to explain automatic behaviors it witnesses the body performing. Yeesh. Okay. Contemporary resources. Modern predictive processing has taken the baton. So we got the consciousness instinct. This is the most direct source. He updates his life's work with modern neuroscience. He explicitly details the interpreter module and how it creates the illusion of a unified self from chaotic modular processes. Oh my gosh, Anil Seth is showing up once again with the same book. Highly recommended. Seth is a leader in interoceptive inference, the modern version of what you are asking about. He explains how the self is just a controlled hallucination designed to regulate the body. He bridges the gap between the insula, prediction, and the feeling of agency better than anyone else right now. That's pretty good. Yo, Dharmanan, what's good? Yo, 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 yo. We've got a fun exercise coming up where we're going to look at the menu of optimal meditation strategies for specific skill development. So, this sounds very Buddhist. Nice. I'm just kind of I'm curious. I want to get that type of thing down, especially while we're looking at attention, because oh, he's into Vipassana. Oh, nice. You know that for a fact? Determined by Robert Sapolsky. Isn't there another Sapolsky, or is it always just Robert Sapolsky? Because I want to read Behave Sapolsky. Oh, that's Robert Sapolsky. Okay. Behave, though. This is 2017. Should I do Determined? Sapolsky dedicates entire chapters to the biology of decisions that occur seconds before we are conscious of them. He aggregates hundreds of studies showing how biological primers drive the action, and the cortex merely claims credit later. Can you help me determine which of Sapolsky's books to read? Either Behave or Determined. Academic keywords for search, sense of agency, comparator model. All right. The logic of the insula. Does dopamine hack the prediction? You hit a critical nuance. Does dopamine just change the input, or does it mess with the prediction machinery itself? It does both. Dopamine acts as a precision weighting mechanism within the insula. In the framework of predictive processing, the brain is a statistical engine. Top down, I predict my body is calm. Bottom up, heart is racing. The conflict, that creates a prediction error. Normally, you might ignore a random heartbeat, but dopamine changes the math in two ways. The indirect influence, changing the data. This is what we discussed earlier. Dopamine via the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis physically revs up the engine. The bottom-up signal becomes louder. The insula receives a screaming error signal from the vagus nerve. The discrepancy between I expect to be calm and I am amped up is now too large to ignore. The interpreter must create a story to solve it. I want that donut. The direct influence, changing the confidence. This is the sleight of hand you are looking for. The insula is rich in dopamine receptors. In predictive coding, dopamine acts as a gain control knob, precision. With low dopamine, the brain treats the incoming body signals as noisy or unimportant. You might feel a pang of hunger, but your brain suppresses the error signal. You don't feel driven. High dopamine, the brain assigns hyper precision to the error signal. When you say, okay, this should be a first thing because this is actually really important to what we've been discussing. When you say gain control knob, are you talking at all about the previous systems of NE or ACH we talked about, which also seem to actually no, I think this is it. But I think that's what's happening here. It's affecting what's in in view, and then it's you know, building a fire together, wire together type of system where this type of drive happens when you get these very specific things that were in your attention. Is this the basis of an effective fire together, wire together system where abstract concepts can lead to these dopamine hits? All right. In high dopamine, the brain assigns hyper-precision to the... I'm guessing this is going to get to the point where it says dopamine's actually driving these other things as well. But maybe that's not the case. Maybe it's like dopamine's an afterthought. We could try to peek. That's serotonin, but... Oh, is this not going to tell us? Maybe not. All right, the summary. All right, I'm going to continue. Who's that other guy? Yuval... Harari, Noah Yuval Harari. He's that's what you're saying. Okay, he's into Vipassana. You missed a message there, right? Yep. I grouped those two in my mind. Paul the intellectuals. Nice. Yeah, I didn't. I hadn't heard of Anil Seth at all, and I just didn't. Maybe I've seen him in videos, but I don't know if I remember. But I've seen Harari like all over the place. All right, this is a sophisticated connection to make. Yes, gain controls the unifying mathematical principle of how neuromodulators work, but the flavor of that gain depends on which molecule is acting and where. All right, here's the breakdown of the 3 factors of gain and how dopamine creates the wire together effect and which Sapolsky book you should buy. Distinguishing the volume gains. You asked if dopamine's gain control is the same as that. The mechanism is similar, but the information being amplified is different, right? Think of the brain as a sound mixing board. We got norepinephrine, the master volume. We got the equalizer, telling us exactly what type of noise is coming through, what type of signals. And the rating stars, value and precision. It amplifies importance. It doesn't make the cup look sharper or louder. It makes the cup look compelling, right? But is it affecting the other ones? That's what I was really getting at. Is this the basis of fire together, wire together? Yes, dopamine is the magic ink that makes the wiring permanent. In classical heavy in learning, the rule is neurons that fire together, wire together. However, if this were the only rule, your brain would wire everything together constantly. That would be chaotic. The brain uses a 3-factor learning rule. Presynaptic fire, the abstract concept. Postsynaptic fire, the behavior thought. The 3rd factor, dopamine. When you see a logo and get a reward, dopamine floods the synapse. Dopamine triggers intracellular cascades that physically synthesize new proteins to cement that connection. Without the dopamine, the trace fades, transient memory. With dopamine, the trace hardens. Okay, I'm trying to get at, does dopamine mechanisms come before and influence the NE and ACH mechanisms, or is the order different, or is it inappropriate to think about these as in order like we did with NE and ACH? Okay, are you noticing a change at 15 minutes meditation? What happens during the sessions? It definitely feels like imagine there's a place where you are when you get distracted, like where your mind's taken over. It feels like that place is closer to center, let's just say. That's like how I would describe it. It's close. It's not, we don't have to use like location, but it's closer to coming back. Like I feel like I'm at a point where if my mind were to wander, we're not that far. We're not far from being able to come back. What the heck was that? Oh, I thought that was a like a ice cream truck that was broken or something. So yeah, I would say that that's definitely a thing. What else? What else? It definitely feels, obviously it feels like almost the same exact amount of time, which is cool. You know, it feels like, you know, you just sit down for a short while and then it's done. What else? What else? I'm not doing guided. I'm doing raw. I'm doing raw with a timer on my watch, so it'll vibrate when it's done. So, what's my approach? Ooh, what are you doing with your attention? Well, it's kind of just trying to focus on. It's kind of trying to focus on the breath, but also just focusing on any feeling that arises, right? It's like mindfulness where you're just paying attention to whatever you notice. it could be thoughts, it could be feelings, etc. But the breath is kind of my way back, right? So, another thing I've noticed is that being able to focus on my breath entirely seems to require less of 100% of my whole attention. Like the amount of my attention that is required for me to stay on my breath is that's diminished, so I can like focus on what is arising else also in my sensory experience. But I'm always making sure that my breath is like close by in some sense, in some metaphorical sense. Oh, okay. Are you familiar? I'm not following any technique. I'm just kind of going literally in memory of waking up from when I last did that, like, I don't know, 2 years ago. Yeah, I think it was literally prior to when I started working on the document. So I'm thinking 2024, like February, March was when I did that was the last time I spent some time meditating for multiple days on end. Some Zen is like that also. Nice. Buddha's breath technique. You also do various things while anchored with the breath in the background. Oh, cool. Yeah, I'm thinking I go raw for a while and then maybe I start. I do want to go back to waking up. I want to do the beginner's course again, just because I think I'm going to be able to interpret what Sam's. I know I'm not supposed to be interpreting anything during these things, but interpreting what Sam says, I think would be helpful for how I think about this document. That being said, there's some things that some ways Sam talks about things that I don't like, but I think it would be nice to just get that in my head. Mahasi has the labeling stuff, but if you're strict about it, you center on the breath and always note in, out, and then label others. Yeah, I try not even to label like in and out. Like even that, I think I sometimes feel like focusing on the breath, like focusing on aspects about the breath is too much. Like I'm going too far in some sense. Like I'm trying to find the least common denominator of what the breath is, and that's like where I'm able to focus. But yeah, okay, strict. So it was kind of like what, I forget the channel that we were watching the other day. She was saying that, you can get to a point where your focus on the breath is less coarse, maybe she said. And yeah, that's kind of the goal here, just to have that be some North Star that isn't much. Strict as in strict to the traditional method, pretty much just Burmese that do that, although a lot of Western Vipassana teachers were influenced by Burma. But yes, there are drawbacks which they're aware of, and it's training wheels in a sense. I see. All right, once I read this one, then we can switch over to the meditation topic, and we can go into this. Oh, this was literally going to answer our question like immediately. The dopamine opioid dissociation. I gotta just chill and read. All right, the answer depends on whether you are reacting to the world bottom up or imposing your will upon it top down. However, in the context of drive and motivation, dopamine is the CEO. It absolutely comes first and dictates the budget for the others. Here is the hierarchical order of operations for voluntary behavior. The top-down chain, voluntary focus. Dopamine affects norepinephrine, which affects acetylcholine. The prefrontal cortex and VTA calculate value. They decide that the future reward is worth the effort. Dopamine creates the goal state. It says, we are doing this. The recruitment, it recruits norepinephrine. This is a critical anatomical fact. The VTA, dopamine, sends excitatory projections directly to the locus coeruleus. Hell yeah. The CEO calls the power plant. The dopamine system effectively kicks the locus coeruleus awake, saying, I have a project. I need you to ramp up arousal at level 6. Result, tonic norepinephrine rises. So this is a different system, right? Surprise danger. This is going to be the phasic norepinephrine. Okay, the execution. Now the standard sequence we discussed takes over. The prefrontal cortex, fueled by dopamine, instructs the nucleus pessalis to release acetylcholine at the visual cortex. You focus. In this case, dopamine is the gatekeeper. If dopamine is low, it never sends the order to the locus ceruleus. I see. Okay, this makes sense. The bottom-up chain, surprise danger. A glass breaks behind you. In this case, norepinephrine drives dopamine into gear, and that leads to the acetylcholine. So the interrupt, the locus ceruleus gets raw sensory data directly from the lower brainstem. It doesn't care about value yet. The phasic norepinephrine burst. Stop everything. As you turn your... And there's obviously... there's like different levels of this. Like, it's not always just stop everything. It could be like, okay, stop focusing on this one aspect. Like when you're playing a game, like it's not like stop playing the game. It's like stop focusing on this one thing because there's an enemy coming from this other direction. And that's not as crazy, but it's still going to be a phasic norepinephrine burst that's going to shock you out of this thing you're focusing on and like to force your attention to go to this thing that could hurt you. The evaluation, dopamine. As you turn your head, the VTA fires a rapid burst to answer, is this new thing good or bad? So dopamine's now driving the systems that are coming up with possibilities of what this thing could be. This is the reward prediction error signal. If it's just a glass, dopamine might dip. If it's a tiger, dopamine interacts with the amygdala to tag it as salient. The lock, if dopamine and amygdala decide it matters, acetylcholine is released to lock onto the debris. The state, the interaction. You asked if it is inappropriate to think of them in order. For sustained states, it's better to think of them as feedback loop rather than straight line. Right. If progress stalls, dopamine stops, blah, blah, blah. Okay. All right, let's get out of that. And let's shift. Shift gears. There's okay. Neurocognitive optimization of contemplative training. Or contemplative. Do people say contemplative or contemplative? I'm guessing contemplative.
Contemplative.
I lost the game. Contemplative, expressing or involving prolonged thought. I keep second guessing my initial go. A comprehensive analysis of skill acquisition, dose response dynamics, and protocol periodization. All right, the shift from monolithic to modular contemplative science. The scientific investigation of meditation has undergone a paradigm shift in the last 2 decades, moving away from treating meditation as a monolithic intervention for stress reduction toward a nuanced understanding of it as a diverse family of cognitive and emotional training regimens. Just as physical exercise comprises distinct modalities, aerobic conditioning, resistance training, and flexibility work, contemplative practices are specialized neurocognitive tools designed to stimulate specific forms of neuroplasticity. This report serves as an exhaustive analysis for the advanced practitioner, dissecting the menu. So I asked for a menu. That's actually what started this. Because I wanted, if I was given a menu, what would be on the menu here? You should try and retreat day or half retreat day during March. So do I have to do that with someone? Like, does it have to be at a place, or could I create a retreat myself? Like, could I spend the entire day outside or something like that? Home retreat. Oh, now I could do it in my home. Could I simply just turn off phones and computer? And what am I doing? Am I trying to meditate the entire time, or am I trying to just do something else? Like, what's happening in a home retreat? This should be the next topic. This should be tomorrow. I could try and find resources for you. Absolutely, that would be awesome. But basic pointers. Are drugs necessary? Basic pointers. All right, dissecting the menu of trainable mental skills, the precise protocols required to strengthen them, and the optimization of dosage and scheduling to maximize skill acquisition while mitigating diminishing returns or adverse effects. Some alternation between walking and sitting meditation to break up monotony. Some plan or schedule beforehand. Plan breaks. Do nothing during the breaks. So this is like I'm just letting my mind wander, or like I'm doing nothing in the sense of I'm also trying to keep a focused state. Should I try to not think about anything related to my life outside of the the session? Like take a break from meditating, but no screens or reading, stuff like that. Okay. So I'm literally doing nothing all day. What about, so I guess eating though, I got to be pretty, maybe I could do like specific mindfulness eating exercises or meditations there. That would be interesting. What if I come out of this thing and I can't even speak? All right, this is definitely going to be a topic for tomorrow. I think I'm going to have it create a whole research paper on what I can do, or what I should do, actually, what it recommends I do. All right. Current neuroimaging and clinical data suggest that the brain is not a static organ, but a dynamic system capable of structural and functional reorganization through repeated experience, a phenomenon known as neuroplasticity. Woo! Meditation operates as a primary driver of this plasticity, engaging specific neural networks such as the default mode network, the salience network, and the central executive network. The user's query regarding the optimization of practice time. And I said that I probably am operating within 15 to 45 minutes, but we also want to know if this was uncapped, what would be optimal. And the combination of practices touches upon the frontier of contemplative neuroscience, the dose-response relationship, and the synergistic effects of cross-training mental faculties. Okay, you can experiment or plan whatever you want, but if you go for 2 hours, you'd want a break, and then if you just sort of chill and think a bit and walk around, you won't get super distracted and won't slip back in, and will slip back into the meditation better. There's a lot of downtime like that during some real retreats where, don't even read. Right. Reading is probably, you're getting too much, it's not just about for me, I imagine it's not just about the stimulus of the reading, the exercise, but it's also like someone's putting thoughts into your head, like literally when you read and when you watch things. But like I would probably want to not get thoughts put into my head as much as possible. So maybe during those off times, I specifically focus on, specific types of thoughts, like gratitude would be one. Maybe people watching would be cool, like literally watch people, go to a public place and just watch people. Songs might be fine depending on if you vet the songs. Like I would want to know what the playlist is, and I know that and maybe the songs don't have any words in it. I'd imagine that would be good. Maybe I've got a set of instrumentals. Maybe I don't know the songs. Maybe that's fine. Maybe it's fine if I just get instrumentals from some Spotify playlist and I just listen to music while I do something. I'm going off the top of the dome. I'm gonna want a Gemini certified regimen here, but how to do retreat in daily life. Let's save that. Let's put that on watch on stream, even though I might not watch it on stream. I might just watch it. Yeah, for now, let's actually just put that in watch later as well. Thank you very much. Oh, we got another. This is the son of Sam's teacher, Tulku Uryan. Oh, that's really cool. Basically Tibetan royalty. That is awesome. I'm glad they are engaged. Glad it's not just like a, you know, I mean, I guess it would be pretty sad if they weren't engaged at all. And it would also be sad if they were like kind of like a nepo baby, but not actually engaging with the material. Okay. This analysis posits that optimal training requires a modular approach. Rather than asking, does meditation work, the practitioner must ask, which specific protocol recruits the specific neural circuitry required for the desired skill? All right, that's perfect. That's exactly what I'm thinking going in. The following sections provide a rigorous taxonomy of these skills, supported by data from longitudinal studies, meta-analyses, and expert-level Olympic meditator profiles. Hell yeah. The son is a freak. Oh no. Okay. Did a multi-year retreat when he was like 7. Oh, he's a freak in that way. Oh, geez. A multi-year retreat when he was like 7. Oh my gosh. That's insane. How does that affect your development? Like, is that good or is that bad? 7. I think that's too young in terms of socialization. You have to be socialized. And you have to be socialized by other people your age. That's the issue. Let me look it up. Okay. All right, taxonomy of trainable skills, the neurocognitive menu. Yes. To answer the user's request for a menu of strategies, we must first delineate the available skills. The literature categorizes contemplative skills into 4 primary domains, each governed by distinct neural mechanisms and strengthened by specific protocols. Domain 1, attentional control and cognitive stability. Attentional control refers to the capacity to voluntarily direct awareness to a chosen object and maintain that focus over time, sustained attention. So that we already talked about how this skill breaks down into multiple skills. There's the ability to center your attention or to adjust your attention, and then there's sustained attention. And these are 2 different skills that can be strengthened in 2 different ways. Different ways in the sense that we talked about how if you wanted to just strengthen your ability to snap back to your whatever focus you want without sustained attention, then it might be beneficial to do multiple shorter meditations throughout the day. But if you were really trying to increase the strength of your ability to sustain attention over time, then you would perhaps want to do a longer meditation and get that type of strengthening that it starts occurring after 15 minutes. The son is a freak. Whoa, he did a multi-year retreat. Ooh. Okay, it was 13. I was off, but that's still really important age. Like, I don't know what would be a safe age to start doing a retreat. I would think it would be near like 17, 18, honestly. Like imagine a high school socialization and you just lose that. You come back and you might, I don't know, 25. Whoa. I mean, I guess, yeah, college socialization is also pretty important. I mean, depending on what kind of experience you have. But I think at 18 you could probably start doing stuff like that and not lose out on socialization or significant socialization. Oh, I did a 10-day when I was 21, but was insane. Like the retreat was insane, or you were insane for thinking that to do a 10-day. Momentum is a big thing in meditation. 3-year retreat at 13. That's insane. So was it the start of 13? You missed 3 years? The retreat was insane. So what happens to your sleep? Oh, I guess you could work out when you're on meditation. Honestly, working out would be a really phenomenal exercise to do during a meditation retreat. Actually, isn't that what they do all the time? Like, isn't that what the Tibetan monks do? And maybe not Tibetan, the Shaolin monks. I imagine like yoga is always a part of this thing. Yeah, I would definitely do that. I would get yoga going. I would set up a whole yoga routine. I shared a room cabin thing with 8 people that had curtains to separate the beds. Nice. So, was it just known that you shouldn't talk to each other? We had a snorer, so I was sleeping 1 to 2 hours a night. That's terrible. Everyone else in that group left early. Just me and the snorer were left. Oh my gosh. Do you think they left because of the snore? Like they couldn't hang the low sleep? Who is Snorer? John Snorer. The ominous Snorer Snorington. I forgot how many total left. Maybe half. Wow. Out of 50-ish. Jeez. So was it expected that you should stay till the end? Like the end of the 10 days? I would leave on the first day, to be honest. Honestly, just getting a day would be pretty phenomenal. And then leaving before you lose sleep from the snorer. From Snorer himself. Okay. Domain, attentional control. We just talked about that, right? Attentional control refers to the capacity to voluntarily direct awareness to a chosen object and maintain that skill over that focus over time. This skill is the bedrock of all other cognitive operations. Without stability, the mind is subject to the chaotic flux of bottom-up sensory processing and the ruminative loops of the default mode network. Bum bum bum. Man, the default mode network is the real villain. The absolute villain here. All right, so this is all topics that we would discuss in the specific discussion of deliverer reflection and building skills of attention. This is all building skills of attention. All right, neurobiological targets. Dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, responsible for executive control and maintaining the goal state of the meditation. Anterior cingulate cortex functions as the conflict monitor, detecting when attention has wandered from the anchor. Default mode network, the network active during mind wandering. Effective attentional training is characterized by the suppression of downregulation of the default mode network. All right, targeted protocol, focused attention, meditation. The gold standard for building this skill is focused attention meditation. The practitioner focuses on a restricted sensory anchor, typically the somatosensory sensation of the breath at the nostrils or the abdomen. The cognitive cycle involves focusing, sustaining, detecting distraction, and redirecting focus. So this isn't even mindfulness, right? This is like specifically you're just trying to focus on one thing. Don't even try to notice anything else or focus on anything else. Maybe mindfulness falls into this, but just a little journey. I mean, would be messed up to force people to say. I think that would be well. Like when I say like should, I mean like you would go into this thing with the tacit. Is tacit the one that's direct? Or is tacit the underneath, like the norm that you would stay? I think that would be slightly illegal too, right? Of course. Not quite. Excludes kasanas. Oh, I think you're referring to what I just read, but I might need to know what kasanas refers to. Visual meditation, objects, and therapy. Yep. Okay, so this is also a focus one, right? Like a specific focused attention meditation. Focused attention meditation is very similar to samatha. It's almost one-to-one map. And samatha, is that mindfulness here? No, this is also the focus on one thing. It's often paired with Vipassana. But the definition they gave excludes visualizing colored discs as meditation. Oh, I see. I get it. Yeah. So this is being a little more restrictive in a not good way. All right, the cognitive cycle involves focusing, sustaining, detecting distraction, and redirecting focus. Variant analysis, breath counting versus mantra recitation within FA, focused attention. Nuances exist between techniques. Breath counting. Research indicates that breath counting is particularly effective for strengthening working memory and vigilance. By assigning a numeric tag to each breath, for example, counting 1 to 10, the practitioner utilizes the phonological loop of working memory, increasing the cognitive load. Studies show BC elicits increased theta and delta power in the prefrontal cortex, markers of deep concentration and cognitive control. Mantra meditation. While a form of focused attention, mantra practice often facilitates a state of transcendental relaxation or trance more readily than breath focus. However, a transcendental relaxation for the specific goal of sharpening attention and reducing attentional blink, the lag time in processing visual stimuli. Do gamers do this? I feel like professional gamers should meditate when they're not practicing in order to increase like straight up reaction time. Am I not reading this correctly? Okay. However, for the specific goal of sharpening attention and reducing attentional blink, active monitoring of the breath shows stronger efficacy in increasing vigilance and perceptual sensitivity. Okay. Evidence of strengthening the attentional blink task is a rigorous measure for this skill. The AB refers to the inability to detect a second target in a rapid stream of visual stimuli if it appears within 200 to 500 milliseconds of the first. Novice meditators who engaged in intensive focus and attention, that was FA? Focused attention. Training showed a significantly reduced AB, implying that focused attention practice streamlines neural resource allocation, allowing the brain to reset faster between cognitive tasks. So this would absolutely help you game. If you're a League of Legends streamer or a Counter-Strike streamer, not streamer, a professional gamer, this type of meditation would help you out. Okay. Everyone should, of course. There's a type of concentration called momentary concentration that I think is more appropriate for that. Is momentary concentration the most appropriate for gamers to develop? That's a good question. Okay, Gemini. I read that FA training shows a significantly reduced AB. Is momentary a more appropriate, if not the most, practice for gamers to develop, for professional gamers? All right, domain 2, metacognition, decentering and insight. Metacognition is the awareness of awareness, the ability to monitor the quality of one's own consciousness. Okay, so this is mindfulness here. This domain encompasses decentering. I think this is where mindfulness is going to come into play, but I could be wrong. This domain encompasses decentering or de-reification, defined as the capacity to observe thoughts and emotions as transient mental events rather than absolute truths or facts. It's the shift from being angry to experiencing anger. Okay, I think I'm on the money with that. Neurobiological targets. The insula, critical for interoceptive awareness and integrating body states with emotional experience. So it's interpreting bottom-up signals. That's what the insula is doing. Right temporoparietal junction associated with perspective taking and distinguishing self from others. Okay. Hippocampus linked to memory and contextualizing experience, which is modulated during insight practices. So the hippocampus is getting a double up here, right? Maybe not here. Okay, never mind. Targeted protocol, open monitoring, OM, and labeling. Once stability is established via focused attention, the optimal strategy for metacognition is open monitoring. In open monitoring, the narrow focus is released and the practitioner rests in choiceless awareness, observing the flow of experience without grasping or pushing away. Okay, so I'm doing something that's in between focused awareness and OM. All right, gamers. All right, to give you a precise answer, we need to distinguish between focused attention and open monitoring as the scientific literature. Oh, is that? Okay, as the scientific literature, specifically the famous Slaughter et al. Study, suggests your premise might be slightly reversed regarding which specific type of training best reduces attentional blink. Here is the breakdown of why. Momentary concentration, often called phasic alertness, is critical, but why a different skill, distributed attention, might actually be the superior answer for reducing AB. Your premise that focused attention training reduces AB is interesting, but the prevailing cognitive science actually points to open monitoring as the superior method for the. All right, so we've got Gemini is countering. Where do we get this? Evidence is strengthening. We've got the impact of focused attention and open monitoring meditation styles on attention. We're gonna have to let these fight out in Gemini here. Here is where I got the notion that FA was a significant practice for reducing AB. Did I misread? All right, the mechanism of attentional blink. Attentional blink occurs because your brain overinvests resources on the first target. Because you're so hyper-focused on processing T1, your brain blinks and misses the second target. I see. Focused attention. This trains you to narrow your focus. While excellent for mechanical precision, pure FA training can sometimes increase the likelihood of AB because it trains you to lock onto a target too heavily. OM, this trains non-reactive monitoring. All right. So, is momentary concentration the answer? If by momentary concentration you mean the ability to trigger phasic alertness, then yes, this is vital, but it is not the most appropriate standalone practice. Relying solely on momentary concentration has risks for a pro gamer. High energy costs, spiking your cortisol and focus repeatedly leads to faster mental fatigue. The spotlight problem. Momentary concentration is a narrow spotlight. It is perfect for micro, but terrible for macro. The professional meta, cognitive flexibility. The most effective practice for a professional gamer is not just FA or momentary concentration, but cognitive flexibility, the ability to switch between soft focus and hard focus. The verdict, while momentary concentration, hard focus, executes the kill, open monitoring is what prevents you from dying. Since most pros already have elite mechanical focus, the edge usually comes from developing the OM state to process chaotic team fights without blinking. Okay. I think terms are all jumbled with the ones I contributed. Like they're using different meanings for momentary concentration. No, you did not misread the document. In fact, you read it quite accurately. The study you uploaded explicitly states that for the participants involved, focused attention significantly reduced attentional blink, while open monitoring did not. However, there is a major catch hidden in the discussion section that explains why this result contradicts the general scientific consensus I mentioned earlier. Here is the breakdown of what the text actually says versus the broader science and what that means for your training. It says, your document confirms your premise entirely for the specific group studied. Behavioral results showed a reduced attentional blink after completing the meditation for the FA group, but not for the OM group. The FA group showed a less suppressed P300, a brain signal indicating successful processing for the second target, meaning they didn't blink as much. The OM group did not show this benefit. The catch, novices versus experts. The crucial context is found in the discussion section. The participants in this study were absolute novices, first-time meditators, who engaged in only a single 11-minute session. The authors explain that this contradicts previous... They only engaged in a single 11-minute session? Isn't this not helpful at all? Gemini's failing over here then. Because, yeah, this should be giving me a view of, like, skill over time. The authors explain this contradicts the previous famous studies where OM was better for AB. They propose a fascinating theory for why FA worked better for these specific beginners. For a beginner, open monitoring is vague and difficult. The authors suspect the OM group simply zoned out or mind wandered because of the lack of skill, right? The FA instructions were concrete. So this is this is all really intuitive, and it's like, yeah, this whole thing was kind of not helpful. And this evidence is not that great for what it's trying to tell me. All right, is momentary, yeah, different meanings, I see. All right, regardless, I think some mix of focused attention and OM is probably effective for a bunch of things. What I was describing seems to still fall under open monitoring, but the term is too umbrella. Fair. Yeah, we can actually, we could do that next. Next is in some other day. We could say, okay, among focused attention and open monitoring practices, like granular practices, which are optimal for these things? Which are optimal for what? All right, metacognition, decentering, and insight. So this is where we got to OM, right? The see, hear, feel technique. A specific highly effective iteration of OM is the see, hear, feel technique, often associated with Shinzen Young's unified mindfulness. The practitioner explicitly labels every arising phenomenon as see, visual, hear, auditory, or feel, somatic. This labeling process recruits the language centers to categorize experience, which creates a momentary wedge of distance between the observer and the observed. Research suggests OM fosters divergent thinking, creativity, and cognitive flexibility. Unlike focused attention, which promotes convergent focus, OM allows the brain to access remote associations, facilitating insight and problem solving. All right. Studies utilizing strengthening decentering. Studies utilizing the decentering experience scale confirm that OM practice significantly increases decentering scores. This is crucial for emotional regulation as it prevents the spiraling effect of negative self-referential narratives. Okay. Then we got emotion regulation, which right now we're not as interested in. But what are we getting? Loving kindness meditation and compassion meditation. Involve the systematic generation of benevolent intentions toward oneself, loved ones, neutrals, and enemies. This is a generative practice distinct from the receptive nature of OM. Research on Olympic level meditators reveals that long-term compassion practice leads to unprecedented levels of gamma wave synchrony. Unlike the transient gamma bursts seen in ordinary cognition, these practitioners exhibit high amplitude gamma as a permanent trait, suggesting a baseline shift in emotional processing toward openness and resilience. Loving kindness meditation is most potent when combined with mindfulness. Mindfulness provides the attentional stability to hold the object, the phrase, or the feeling, while loving kindness meditation provides the emotional antidote to resentment or apathy. Meta-analyses confirm that combining these practices yields stronger effects on anxiety reduction and subjective well-being than either in isolation. Pretty cool. What is attentional blink? Okay. Check this. Research by that has shown that intensive Vipassana practitioners, specifically those using the Mahasi style, can eliminate a phenomenon called attentional blink. How about this? Come on. Heard you say it earlier. That's the that is specifically where was it defined here? The attentional blink refers to the inability to detect a second target in a rapid stream of visual stimuli if it appears within 200 to 500 milliseconds of the first. So it would be like you're committing too much to this one stimulus, and you're unable to take in the second stimulus. So for gaming, it would be like you dodge something, but you're unable to see the second thing coming at you. My Gemini spat that out. Oh, nice. Okay. So, domain 4, interoceptive accuracy and somatic recovery. Interoception is the sensing of the physiological condition of the body, heartbeat, respiration, gut feelings. High interoceptive accuracy is correlated with better emotional regulation, knowing that you are anxious before you react. Somatic recovery refers to the deliberate downregulation of the sympathetic nervous system, fight/flight, to induce parasympathetic dominance, rest/digest. Neurobiological targets. The insular cortex, the primary hub for interoceptive processing. Body scan practice leads to cortical thickening in the insula. Body scan practice. Nice. Autonomic nervous system. Modulation of heart rate variability and cortisol levels. Targeted protocol, body scan and non-sleep deep rest. So body scan, a systematic sweeping of attention through the body. This practice is distinct from relaxation. It is a perceptual training task to increase the resolution of somatic awareness. And then NSDR, Yoga Nidra. While similar to a body scan, NSDR is specifically designed to lower brainwave frequency towards sleep-like states while maintaining consciousness. This state facilitates the replenishment of neurotransmitters and mimics the neuroplasticity consolidating effects of sleep. How do you do it, though? How do you do it? I do hella yoga nidra every day instead of napping. Nice, for like a year. That's awesome. Yeah, I gotta start trying that. Because I really can't nap effectively. I just can't fall asleep, so. Alright, is a cornerstone of the field. The advanced meta. Here's how the document distinguishes the Vipassana approach, so that's OM, from the focused attention approach used in the specific study. The document acknowledges the research you found, noting that this found that engaging in a session of open monitoring meditation reduced the attentional blink for experienced meditators. It further validates the connection to the style you mentioned, explicitly linking Vipassana meditation to these effects on event-related potentials. All right, the critical difference, efficiency versus power. This is the most important takeaway for a professional gamer. The document reveals that while both practices can reduce AB, they achieve it through opposite mechanisms depending on your skill level. The Vipassana OM route, experts. So we should act as if we're experts here. We should just practice the expert practice, even though we're not experts. Research by them suggests that that experts reduce AB by becoming more efficient. They allocate fewer resources to the first target, saving bandwidth For the second target, this is the open monitoring or distributed attentional state. The focused attention route. Novice is your PDF. In contrast, the novices in this study reduced AB not by being efficient, but by increasing total recruitment. The study found an enhanced. So I feel like even for a novice, like, because this is short-term gains also. For a novice, I feel like doing something in between, like what I'm doing, is actually beneficial because you're not only strengthening the FA stuff that you probably need, but then you're also gaining the benefit of the more optimal strategy for actual attentional deployment. All right, what this means for your practice. Oh, the PDF. I see. That's what it's saying. It's the thing I attached. Oh, man. Oh, man. We got more. Check this. High resolution sensing at the stage. The Mahasi technique. How about this, which seems to be close to the Mahasi technique. All right, we've got dose response dynamics, defining the optimal duration. Examination of the dose response curve. The evidence indicates this relationship is nonlinear with distinct thresholds for maintenance, hypertrophy, skill building, and mastery. The minimal effective dose, maintenance, 12 minutes. Research led by Doctor on high stress cohorts has identified 12 minutes per day as a critical minimum effective dose. For what? Participants who practiced for less than 12 minutes daily saw a degradation in working memory and mood as stress loads increased. Those who hit the 12-minute threshold maintained their baseline cognitive performance. For the user, 12 minutes is the floor. It does not necessarily build new capacity, but it prevents the erosion of existing capacity during high-stress periods. It functions as a neurocognitive prophylactic. Why are we assuming that I'm going to have increased stress periods here? The hypertrophic range, skill acquisition, 20 to 45 minutes. What? For the user's availability window, then the 20 to 45 minute range is the hypertrophic zone where active skill acquisition occurs. The standard protocol for mindfulness-based stress reduction is approximately 45 minutes of daily practice. Studies show that meaningful reductions in psychological distress and improvements in well-being are dose-dependent within this range. A large-scale analysis of digital meditation practice suggests that to achieve a meaningful improvement in well-being, approximately 15% increase, users needed to accumulate roughly 35 to 65 minutes of practice daily over an 8-week period. So, all right, I don't know if this means multiple in one day or just total. Neuroplasticity, the wiring of new neural pathways, is an energy-intensive process. A session of 30 to 45 minutes provides sufficient time under tension to trigger the release of neurotrophic factors and engage the consolidation mechanisms required for learning. The uncapped optimization, the 10,000 hour perspective. If time were not capped, what is the absolute optimal duration? The data from Olympic meditators provides a ceiling. Professional meditators typically engage in 4 to 8 hours of formal practice daily. The Dalai Lama, for example, wakes at 3:30 a.m. and practices for roughly 4 hours, incorporating meditation, prostrations, and study. The transition from temporary states of focus to permanent traits of being appears to require massive volume. The altered traits research indicates that the most profound brain changes, for example, baseline gamma synchrony, are seen in individuals with 12,000 to 62,000 lifetime hours. Diminishing returns for lay people. However, for a non-monastic brain, simply sitting for 4 hours without expert guidance often leads to junk miles, periods of dullness, sleepiness, or unchecked mind wandering without the scaffold of a retreat environment. The optimal daily duration for a dedicated lay practitioner is likely between 60 to 90 minutes, often split into 2 sessions. Wow. I never trust it. Yeah, I don't think we should trust these numbers like exactly. To answer is always the more the merrier. Nonsense. What is it saying? Okay. Yeah, I am curious. Like, how much does your instruction going in affect the efficacy of the practice? I imagine it's greater than 0. All right, synergy, sequencing, and doubling up. The user asks, can I double up different practices on the same day, or do I start seeing diminishing returns? The evidence strongly supports doubling up, provided the sequencing aligns with cognitive load principles. In fact, specific combinations yield synergistic effects that exceed the sum of their parts. All right, focus before insight. One of the most robust findings in procedural optimization is the order effect of focused attention and OM. OM requires the inhibition of the DMN to prevent the observer from being swept away by the observed. Focused attention practice effectively quiets the DMN and stabilizes the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. If a user attempts OM immediately upon sitting, they often struggle with agitation. By practicing 15 to 20 minutes first of focused attention, the mind is stabilized, creating a high-resolution platform for OM. A study comparing FA then OM versus OM then FA sequences found that the FA first group scored significantly higher on mindfulness metrics, acting with awareness, non-judgment. Very cool. Very cool. Maybe I should start my session with a different, like a more focused attention route, and then switch over. All right, the compassion sandwich, integrating affect. Combining cognitive training, mindfulness, with affective training, loving kindness, prevents the dryness or emotional detachment that can sometimes arise for rigorous attentional training. Mindfulness increases the clarity of the visualization in loving kindness, while loving kindness reduces the self-criticism that often arises when a meditator notices they have lost focus during mindfulness. So a protocol, a highly effective uncapped session structure involves 20 minutes focused attention, 20 minutes OM, 10 minutes loving kindness meditation. That's a long meditation. Okay. Massed versus distributed. When managing the 15 to 40 minute constraint, the user must decide whether to do one long session or multiple short ones. The debate, a study on massed versus distributed learning, generally favors distributed practice for long-term retention and integration, but massed practice for immediate depth. What does that mean? Circadian factors. Morning, high cortisol and vigilance, best for focused attention and high effort cognitive work. Evening, lower alertness, preparing for sleep, best for body scan, NSDR, or light loving kindness meditation. Recommendation, if the user has 45 minutes, a 30-minute morning session, and a 15-minute evening session, so 30-minute morning doing focused attention OM, and then a 15-minute evening session, NSDR, creates a bookend effect that leverages state-dependent learning. The morning session trains the brain to be mindful during the day. The evening session facilitates sleep-dependent consolidation. It's pretty effective, too. You're also training yourself to go to sleep, which is cool. Optimized protocols for the user. Based on the research synthesis, the following protocols are designed to maximize the user's specific constraints and goals. Protocol A, the hypertrophic daily routine, 45 minutes. All right. Designed for the user's maximum daily cap to build all 4 skills. We do the cognitive gym in the morning, 30 minutes. This is focused attention. And then open monitoring. And hopefully some loving kindness as well, given the information. Session 2, the recovery phase. Evening, we got the loving kindness or NSDR. Okay. That's very true. I pretty much always start with the breath as a focused attention, then do something else. That's one of the reasons the breath is so useful. It clears the state and focuses you for other technique. Okay, so I should consider that even when doing my 15-minute, what am I at? 15 minute, 15 seconds. That I could do uh, maybe 10 minutes of well, I'm gonna have to do it intuitively. I don't want an alarm to go off during this thing. So maybe I start with focused attention, then I switch over to OM, and that's like the minimum kind of instruction that I keep in my mind. All right, protocol B, the maintenance routine, designed for high stress days where time is limited, adhering to the 12-minute threshold. 12-minute threshold. Oh, right. That it needs to be larger than that. So 12 to 15 minutes, focused attention only. Protocol C, the uncapped optimal route. Oh my gosh. Morning block, 60 minutes. Afternoon block, 30 minutes. I don't know about that one. All right. The non-linearity of risk project highlights that adverse effects are significantly more prevalent in intensive practice settings, greater than 1 hour a day or retreats. Approximately 60% of long-term meditators report at least one adverse effect, and 6 to 14% report lasting distress. Intensive OM practice can lead to interoceptive flooding or hypersensitivity, where the practitioner becomes acutely aware of internal pathology, trauma, somatic pain, without the regulatory capacity to manage it. Yikes. Contraindication. Oh, I'm sorry. Contraindication. Jesus. Contraindication for doubling up. Deconstructive versus constructive. Deconstructive practices like OM and Vipassana break down the sense of self and rigid cognitive structures. If a user doubles up exclusively on these, they risk nihilism or fragmentation. Safety valve. Constructive practices, loving kindness meditation, and focused attention build structure and warmth. Okay. Future outlook. The future of contemplative optimization lies in precision medicine applied to the mind. We are moving toward a model where specific practices are prescribed for specific neural deficits. Focused attention for ADHD-like symptoms. Loving kindness for depression. Body scan for anxiety. All right. The menu is specific. Do not just meditate, practice certain things, etc. All right. Everyone's different, but one thing to think about is if you get to around 20 minutes just focusing the whole time, then joy starts really kicking, and that helps you enjoy it more and go longer. So you're saying focused attention for 20 minutes? Or are you saying 20 minutes in general? Like, I'm thinking, would it be bad to do 10 minutes of focused attention, 5 minutes of OM, and then we start adding on loving kindness for the last few minutes? Or should I only start doing that once I get to like 15 focused attention, 5 minutes OM, and then loving kindness for the remainder? Feel free to ask AI. I'd say this is all secondary to what you enjoy and are excited by. By the way, true. Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah, I might keep that question then in the dark. Maybe do a little ignorance is bliss on this one. I don't think it's going to matter at the edges here. I think it's just going to still benefit me regardless. With that said, I think we can conclude. And yeah, we'll continue with this tomorrow. And I didn't read this, right? Oh man, I don't know if I think I don't have the energy to keep going here. Can we get a the Mahasi style of Vipassana is famous for noting at high speeds, one note every second or faster. This rapid noting forces the brain into the high temporal resolution state you described, preventing it from getting stuck on any single object long enough to trigger a blink. Oh, that's cool. I try to do like a noting, but I don't do it in a significantly linguistic way. Like I try to just, it's more like a notice, and then not even try to give much thought to it. You know, I don't want to judge it in any way. I don't want to, not even positive, negative, but not also not even like a significant interpretation of what it is. All right, I think I'm gonna call it there. It's a natural part of meditation, right? That joy eventually comes up if the conditions are right or with enough focus. I'm just pointing to the idea that how long it takes for the joy to arise can influence how long sits you want to how long of the sits you want to do. Yeah, true. It'll be cool to start seeing that, but I'm probably not gonna. I'm not gonna ruminate on it or think about it too much because I don't want that expectation to be lingering there. So I think I'm just gonna enjoy what I currently have, or at least try to. I think that's another thing I want to try to play around with. I'm not sure if this is a thing, but just like, you know, I guess this is a loving kindness thing, but being appreciative of the moment and not trying to go to the next thing. That's like going back to this dopamine type of discussion. I imagine that dopamine is affecting even the thoughts that we're having, like the most minute thoughts, such that when you're reasoning through something, dopamine's kind of pulling you towards what your conclusion is here or what you're trying to get to. Like why you're thinking this thing is probably leading to some reward state in theory, and dopamine is driving that process. So yeah, to imagine like what I could do to try to stop that dopamine from coercing me all the time would be to gain an appreciation of the current state and not to engage in whatever thought is trying to push me to the next. So, all right. Everyone have a good rest of the day. Thanks for chilling, and we will continue on this topic soon. My philosophy has always been there so much personal variance in how effective things are. The best thing to do is experiment. Absolutely. I think that's basically the thesis of the book, of the document. It's going to be, hey, we're going to give you a bunch of tools. Go experiment, see what works for you, see what you think is cool, what feels good. You know, try it out, come back. Don't write off something that doesn't work initially. And yeah, just stay open-minded. All these things are going to be like the main theses driving all of what we talk about in part 2, all the actual techniques. But yeah, what we're trying to do is build a menu for the reader. Like, these are all things you can do. These are just know these things are there. These things have worked on other people, and you can try them out and see if they work for you. Some of these things need to be done a certain amount of time before that people have noticed effects, you know, stuff like that. All right. Let us bounce. Have a good